I don't stick around for you, Paul, but
Oh, come on, you skip every one. To be fair, I've noticed that. Might be answering any of your questions.
no worries, thank you. Thanks for having us.
See you later.
Yeah.
We are live and I just see your presentation.
Thank you.
That's great.
Hearing all the things.
Well, I actually have to say, well, this is the stuff that the site every month.
Does it?
It's bread and butter for me. All right.
Okay. Thanks for staying around and listening. The council is undertaking a rates review, and we thought, as you may have seen yesterday, Central and Apps, there's an article there. I don't know if the OMP has put anything in yet, but they put out of
They are news, I think.
so we got to the point where we are we've decided on our options. So I will talk through what we've done to date, what the outcome is, what we're planning, and what we hope will happen. So what are we doing? So October 2024, the council decided to harmonise funding, districtise, if you want to call it that, but that's not really a word. And it did that for rates for the majority of activities. There are community board exceptions. They still exist and they will continue on into the future. This took effect from this financial year we're in now, so from 1 July 2025. As part of the long-term plan, council did receive submissions supporting a rates review, and they were unsolicited submissions. And post the LTP, we continue to receive letters, etc., kind of talking about the unfairness of our rating system. Now, you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt, because that's I don't necessarily want to pay my rates, but there is a little bit of a trend there. So we thought that.
Is that home ownership or like industrial rates?
No, it's home,
rates?
mainly homeowners. Yeah. The big submission came from Federated Farmers for the LTP. So we've kind of got a little bit of a cross section to kick this off. It was talked about prior to the local body elections last October, and it was put in front of the new council at that time after the elections to see whether there was an appetite to push on with it. So there was, and we have. So the new council supported the rates review. So next slide, thanks, Sarah. So I was asked this question at Vincent Community Board, because I've talked to CCB, VCB, and now it's TBCB, and then I'll do Manitoba next week. Why are we doing this, and why do it now? Rates have not been reviewed for a long time, and if I talk to various people around the council, they can't remember the last time it was done. I'll send you a copy of these.
I've got them in the meeting photo.
That's fine. The council also in November, December, had a workshop to determine their strategic outcomes, and by far the most important for the council at a 50% weighting. So there were 3 others after that, but this one was the big one. They wanted to determine that their funding was their number one priority, and they wanted it fair, future-proof, and flexible. Three Waters is leaving us next year, 1 July 2027. So those rates will be going. From a CODC perspective, I mean, the new Southern Waters Limited will have to fund. And it is important that probably is the best time to do it, when the water entity is set up by itself. And it was mentioned, I think Curtis, you mentioned it today, it's important to understand that this review does not change the size of the pie. It's not designed to increase the rates take. What it is designed to do is to change who pays for what slice in a fair, future-proof and flexible manner. Councils had 4 public workshops to discuss this and guide its thinking to get to this point. Actually, the point yesterday when they resolved the 3 options that they would like to consider with the public. And the other question that was asked, why are we doing this given that there is a review of local government, simplifying local government, etc.? Why would you do a rates review? Doing a rates review actually benefits council, simplifying stuff. It makes potentially would make the rates similar to our neighbours, so it makes the transition a little bit easier. So basically what I'm saying is that there's no reason why we shouldn't be doing the rates review right now.
So are other councils doing their rates reviews
No.
as well? Or this
No.
is just
This is just us. We started this process long before the government announced any of its changes. So I guess the question that we were asked by council was, given the government have now changed their views and they want us to go down the simplification process, should we continue with the rates review? And I think the answer is no. Yes, we should continue with it because it, we should be looking at it regardless of what the outcome might be.
It can't even be determined when, like, we don't think we've done one since the formation of the council, have we?
I'm not sure that we have. We've tweaked around the edges where we've had to introduce, like districtisation, if you think about it, was probably the last big change, and that was tweaked to ensure that it was similar to what was in there before. So it's kind of a flow on from there, and I don't think that
The crux of it, we actually probably haven't looked at it for
a long
36 years.
But it does still in Europe is quite long standing with staff and she couldn't remember what the last,
It's been there since 96 and he doesn't really have.
So this is just really a follow on from the centralisation of councils. And now we're going from councils to districts and districts to regions. So it's just a continuum.
Yeah, but we didn't make.
Centralisation.
Yeah, but we didn't make that decision based on what the government were suggesting. This is a good thing to review, regardless of whether you've centralised, regionalised. You should be looking at your rates.
This rating system may stay fully intact, no matter what happens with variation. You could have base funding essentially in the district.
And the decision to take a review of it actually started with Paul's predecessor, and obviously Paul's picked up and was doing the work. Really, I find from where I sit, our rating system overly complex. It really is hard, and it goes down to a level of detail that other councils, quite wisely, don't have all these differentials. All
Is that because of our district?
It's because we've bolted things on over time
Yeah.
and it's messy.
I mean, we levy rates
Yeah.
that appear on a rates bill,
Yeah.
and it's $1.42.
Yeah.
For argument's sake, I can't remember which rate it is, but it might actually be in promotions. It used to be in promotion space.
Yeah.
Somebody got a bill that had $1.42 on it for that particular rate. And it is very, very difficult to, it almost corrupts the rating system, because if you do one thing to a group of ratepayers in one space, it impacts another group of ratepayers, and then you have to try and fix that potentially the next year in the old urban rural type of thing, and then you're pulling a lever to fix something in a following year that's going to impact the ones that you fixed the previous year. So hence why it needs to be simple and flexible. But yesterday the council did determine its position. and it will now prepare what we call a statement of proposal, draft revenue and financing policy, and these will go forward for public consultation starting at the end of July and ending in September. So that's just the consultation time we require for a month. Fundamental change is we are asking whether we should be changing from land value to capital value. Whether we should be moving to more general rates or keep targeted rates. So it is a complete review. We will be pre-engaging with specific affected parties to let them know the changes being suggested and what it looks like for them. That's already started for some of the big players, the Contact Energy, for argument's sake. It will have an impact on Contact. So we have talked to them specifically, and we will do that with interested groups, Federated Farmers, the growers associations, Grain Power, all those groups, and we're just working on the engagement plan and who we're going to be talking to as a pre-consultation space. So we are proposing 3 options, one of which is the status quo, so we're not changing anything. We did have 13 options that we were talking through. Yeah. Nothing is decided though, and I think it's probably fair to say that what we put up will probably not be the answer that we get at the end of the process. So it's going to be an interesting month or two.
Is the capping of rates, or the government's proposed capping of rates, going to make much of a difference on?
Capping of rates really talks about the revenue required by council. So that's the increase in rates that will come in terms of what we need to do to deliver the services that we deliver. And we go through that process through the LTP process, and that sets our budgets, that then sets the rates requirements. This process is not the same, and what it's going to do is effectively set based on what you pay now, or I would say compared to what you might pay under 1, 2, or 3 of those different scenarios. There will always be council going through its budgeting process and having to raise revenue. That's where the rates cap will impact them. Although my understanding, the rates cap is if it's a 4% cap, for argument's sake, then all of the rates factors that you levy will go up by 4% on average. So it's not you as an individual ratepayer will only get a 4% increase. If you have a high value property, you'll pay more than someone who has a lower value property, but everybody's rate factor will go up by 4%. Right. So we've determined our position. So what may not change? We thought that solid waste should stay as it is. So it's fixed charge. If you get the service, you pay for the bins. If you don't get the service, you pay for the waste management levy kind of thing. So it's not changing because it really is truly almost user pays. Yeah. So we think that that's fair enough. We're also proposing not to change the community board grants rate. So that will be still levied on a ward base determined by community board's input based on, I think it's based on capital value, and it has differentials. So if you're a rural, you pay less. If you're a residential, you pay 1. Commercial pays 5 times kind of thing. So that's not changing. And the next slide, thanks. But what may change, we're proposing, as I said before, to simplify rates by removing the remaining targeted rates. So community facilities, that's a targeted rate. What we're actually looking at doing is removing those rates and fund it through the general rate. So you can kind of see where the simplification starts to come in. We won't have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 fixed rates like the library rate. It will be all funded out of the general rate. It won't reduce the amount of money that we're funding. It's just split differently. And we are proposing to change the basis of charging rates from land value to capital value. So what that will do, it will effectively bring in additional ratepayers who may not be contributing or have not contributed before. So your utilities, telecom, because they don't have a land value at the moment, they don't pay any general rate. Whereas if we move to capital value, the towers, the little boxes on the side of the road for telcos, transpower pylons, all of that come into the calculation, and we've estimated there's about $500,000 worth of rates that we currently don't collect because we're on land value.
Or there's a $500,000 burden that be shifted from existing ratepayers.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And what that will mean is that they will pay $500,000 and the rest of the ratepayers will pay $500,000 less, spread over everybody.
So if everybody did that, say like with telecom's going to end up. With it just moves rates bills.
So
That's going to come back on the consumer anyway.
Well, there are only, I think, 11 councils that use land value. So everybody else, all of the other 70 or 60 odd councils in the country use capital value. So that's already embedded in.
Okay.
So in some ways, we're actually paying for everyone else,
Yeah.
but not getting the benefit of them paying their $500,000. Yeah.
There are some consequences of moving to land capital value as well. Orchardists, for argument's sake, vineyard owners. Under land value, their trees and vines are not valued. Under capital value, they are. So, yeah, I can see you raising your eyebrows. But that's under the Rating Valuations Act of 1998. It specifically allows for that. And I guess the reason it allows for that is that once you plant a fruit tree, your objective is to get fruit from it and sell the fruit rather than cut it down and replant it. Now, there is an anomaly. Forestry trees are not counted in capital value. And that's legislated as well. And I suspect that's legislated like that because production forests get knocked over every 25 years or so and then get replanted, or they did back in 1998 when this legislation was put in place. I suspect that there is a different reason for holding forests now, and that's carbon farming. So but we've got the legislation we've got. So so forest owners, their trees are not part of capital value.
So if you're going to tax the trees, how much more are orchardists going to be looking at?
Well, that depends on the option. Because the other thing you've also got is you are bringing in the hydros, so Roxburgh and Clyde, Dunstan, will move from land value to capital value. And it just so happens that the evaluations this time around have increased very significantly. It's like a factor of 4 times. So the impact on individual properties is not necessarily going to be as bad because moving to capital value hydros, and I'll talk about the options that we've settled on.
Great.
Will bring will mean that they are paying a high proportion, not a high proportion, they're paying a proportion that everybody else would have paid in the past. So everybody else's increase won't necessarily be as high as it could have been without the hydros coming in, if that makes sense.
So you tax a tree, you tax an orchard, right? And then you get what happened to us earlier on in the year is that one of our orchards got wiped out with hail. It then has no value.
Well, the trees still have value if they're still standing. Well, if they're still standing, but you obviously, that is a natural thing. We can't deal with that in a rating perspective. What we're doing is we're dealing with it from a legislative perspective. So values in the rating valuation act allows for those things to be passed as part of the capital value. One could say, you know, if it's a horticulturalist, right, and hailstorm wipes out their tunnel houses, those sorts of things happen. In a farming situation, you know, something happens to the stock, or prices fall, or those types of things. We just have to deal with what we've got, and we can't then tailor a rating system to deal with all of those
No, you
things
can't.
that
That's
might
why
happen.
it's ridiculous to tax trees.
That's government regulation.
That's what the rules are, and that's not.
It's not council saying. Well,
Yeah.
It's just there.
But the good thing is, the options that we've proposed, we're expecting submissions on those. And if someone comes up with an idea that we can run with, then that's something that the council will consider. Nothing is set in concrete in terms of this. I think in the Central Acts article yesterday, or today, Mayor Taylor was, you know, it's open, here's our ideas, but we're looking for more. And so, yeah.
There's an option to counter that. There's, you know, one idea that may come forward is if we view that carbon forestry isn't great fairly, and there's a cost imposed on the council, you could have a situation where you have differential on carbon costs.
Yep.
To capture some of the side effects of them in the landscape and cost the council. Key thing, whatever happens, is speaking for you, but you got to be able to justify your rating decision. Right? So if you can justify why Wiltshire should be different to everybody else, then
That's right. That was the question that the council continually asked itself: what makes a particular property grouping different? The hydros, what makes them different? And they would have asked the same question about orchards and commercial premises within the town centres, residentials. What makes them different? So those questions have been asked, and this is the proposals that they've come up with. So we have the next slide, please. So let's get into the proposals. So option one is status quo, and status quo is always an option. There's just don't change anything. And that's been put up. So we've modelled that based on the 26-27 annual plan. We've excluded, when we're doing the comparisons, we've excluded Three Waters from all of the modelling, because 1 July it's not going to be within council's brief. And we've also excluded solid waste, because solid waste will be what solid waste is going to be, and the community board differential for grants, because that will be what it'll be. So really what we are modelling is what we're proposing to change, so that there is no, I guess there's no things that can trip us up saying, well, we put that in, but we didn't put it into the thing. So this is the bits that you can change, I guess. So that means that it would stay on land value, and it would continue with all of its targeted rates that we currently have. So option two is to change the valuation method to capital value, remove all the current differentials for hydros. So they currently, they have it based loosely on land value, but their increase is limited to the average increase that council determines in a year. So it has no connection really at the end of the day to increasing their values, their profitability, or anything like that. It's really just, you will pay what our average rates increases in above what you're currently paying. Whereas you would have noticed, 2 years ago, we were some people were facing a 30% increase for their particular thing. The average was a lot lower than that, and the hydros would have paid the average increase. That makes sense. And then we're going to look at consolidating all of our other rates into the general rate. So it's just effectively we'll end up with, from a district-wide perspective, probably only 1 or 2 rates: general rate, solid waste rate, and the community board rates. And then option 3 is to remove, change the capital value, remove the current differentials for the hydros, and apply a differential of ×2 on all properties except residential, lifestyle, and others. And others tends to be churches and sports grounds and the likes. So that's a definition under the valuers rules. So what that means is that a commercial activity, which is everything bar residential, lifestyle, and other, would pay a factor of ×2 on their rates. So that was, I guess, at one end of the spectrum. Status quo is at the other end of the spectrum. Option 2 is kind of in the middle, and they're sufficiently different from each other that they make sense to consult on. Now, when we talked about the 13, 6 or 7 of those options related around how we charge a differential. So there was not a lot of point in whether the differential was ×1.5, ×2, or ×3. That can all be adjusted and changed as we hear from the through the consultation process. So the next one, thanks. So we also had a general property revaluation come through, and as I say, the process around the rates review started well before we got the information from the property revaluation. So QV did their 3-yearly district reval. And as I said, there are significant movement in 2 hydros with a move to capital value that will impact them. Transfer of 3 waters to Southern Waters Limited. We have a rates cap where we can only charge 30% of our rates on a fixed uniform charge. So what that means is that where you set a targeted a rate, a fixed rate, and everybody pays it, you can't charge more than 30% of your rates on that. So with 3 waters leaving, so the income that they have goes, it means that we don't comply with section 21 of the Local Government Rating Act. So we will be at about 40.69. So we're above the cap. Government have anticipated this with the shift of 3 waters. And what they have said is you've got 5 years to get back to the 30% cap. Council in its options are proposing to move back to the 30% cap in year 1. And that's what that's going to do is shift fixed rates to variable rates, because we'll have to reduce the uniform charge. And then that variable rate will be paid by higher value properties. Yeah, next one is the question. So happy to answer any questions. I think the really important thing is that the council are really open to ideas from the consultation process. Nothing's fixed in concrete, and things may change. And you know, as you mentioned one about forestry, for argument's sake, that a differential could be applied because the Act doesn't deal with it. So anything is open to suggestion.
Pushing there's quite a bit of case law though too, isn't there?
Yeah.
That helps guide
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
the possible and not the ridiculous.
Yeah. The thing about this process is it is very, 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 it is process driven, and it is cross your T's, dot your I's. People will be upset, and we'd anticipate at least half of the ratepayers will be paying a little bit more or much more. That's just, we've modelled that. We can see where that sits. The other half will be paying less or a lot less. the interesting things are that the generators will be paying, depending on option 1 or option 2 or 3, will be paying more, which has the benefit of reducing everybody else's rate effectively, same as the utilities. So if you put those together, there's probably $3-4 million of rates that they will pay that everybody else will not have to pay. We've had, sorry, yeah.
That has a knock-on effect. So if you're going to hit the utility companies more, and they end up having to pay millions more in rates, they just pass that on to us.
And that was exactly the point I was going to talk about.
Start, smacking it on to our orchardists. They're either going to have to make savings and make cuts, or pass that very hard industry to pass. To pass it on.
Yep. Yep.
So what the council might win, again, smacking this around.
Council doesn't, council doesn't win. Council's, it's game theory, council's neutral. On
Yeah,
inflation.
yes, but the more you rise, the more the rates go up, whatever way they go up, the more it's the community and people get hacked off because they're paying more rates and they don't feel that they get any value for money.
Okay, yes, look, and
You're going to have some data going up with them.
we will, yeah.
You'll be surprised when you see the data, Joe.
And look, we can send you,
There's a lot of surprises. Oh,
sorry,
right, Karen.
I was going to say, the report yesterday has quite interesting reading because of the impact of the hydros and the utilities. Even the ×2 multiplier on some activities, we looked at the large hotel, Cromwell's Gate. The difference for them between what they would pay under the status quo and what they might pay under a ×2 multiplier. Bear in mind their rates bill is $20,000, is only an extra $2,000 or $3,000. So it's not as significant necessarily, depending on the option that's chosen and how it mixes up. And there are a lot of combinations that you can put in. We can't model every combination. So, but it's not necessarily as, you talk about a ×2 multiplier, and that was the question that the ODT asked yesterday. Does that mean that somebody's rates is doubling? No, it's not. If you didn't have the hydros in there and the lights, then potentially their increase would be more because they are having to pick up more of that rate. The other thing you've got to think about is that if everybody moves to capital value, so that the proportion that you're only paying an increase on the proportion that you are above someone else. So if you take a whole bunch of houses in Cromwell, for argument's sake, they have a land value maybe of $500,000, pretty standard. I think it's about, I don't know, but depending on what their capital value is. So if the lowest capital value goes up makes the value increase by 50%, and the highest goes up by 60%, you're only talking about that margin because everybody's has moved up at least 50%. So it's the same with any of the properties around the district. It's how they sit against someone else as to what they may or may not pay. So if orchardists compared to farmers, because farms currently are land value, they move to capital value. I wouldn't have expected a great deal of increase in the farming space because you're bringing on sheds and a house and this other stuff that the farm might have that it doesn't already pay. But in compare all the farms, that person's increase isn't as significant. It might be a 10% increase, but if everybody else has gone up by 7%, they've absorbed a lot of that increase, and you're only dealing in the margins of the the 3%. So, yeah, it's just really tricky to model every combination and permutation. So, what we will have is, sorry, I was going to make that point that, yeah, businesses may pass those costs on, but what's going to happen is QV have changed their methodology for valuing hydros. Okay, we were the first ones in the evaluation cycle to get that. They're moving into Southland next, and they'll do Manapori. So Manapori's values will change, and Southland will rate the way Southland rates on increased values. Then they'll go to Waitaki. Waitaki they'll do the same thing. Waitaki's got a little bit of a difference because they do a differential as well, but they are going to do that for all of the hydros over, and I suspect it'll probably be over 10, 12 years, absolutely. But those values will change, and whether it's $3 or $4 million for a company the size of Contact makes much difference, I don't know. They may pass that on. Telcos may pass it on, but they're passing it on across the nation rather than just for us. So it's not like we are going to bear the $4 million increase just in CODC space. It's going to be across the
And with your logic, if one's gone up, then we're saying it somewhere else for some other.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So we've done the modelling around where that might sit as well in terms of who benefits and who doesn't on all of the options. So happy to make that available, and it will be part of the consultation process because we want to be able to get that stuff out to people. We want them to make an informed contribution. The other thing we will be doing is we're preparing, and I've got a meeting tomorrow about it, is a tool that will allow you to put your valuation number in, and it will tell you if you stay on the status quo, this is your rates bill. If you go to option 2, this is your rates bill. If you go to option 3, this is your rates bill. So you will be able to compare the options to see how that impacts you. And there was a conversation yesterday at council workshop around how the engagement works. People were kind of we don't want to give them that tool because we want them to think about it. Whereas people will go straight to what's it going to cost me, and if it's good for them, you'll never hear from them again. If it's bad from them, they'll be the ones probably who will be submitting. So
will that tool be available by between the July, September?
it'll be available for the consultation process.
It's going to be interesting, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The heat maps,
Oh, we also have those. Yeah.
but that's quite helpful too, because they have quite a degree of fidelity, don't they?
Yeah. So what we've done is we've mapped every property.
Who goes up, who goes down.
Yeah.
By region.
So we've taken every property district-wide and then in the 4 main towns within each of within the district. And we have modelled status quo, option 2, option 3. And you can see where the increases go. And the heat map is just that some have.
An option 4B, hydro, is bright red.
It's bright red because they are impacted.
22.
So we've got all that information as well that we'll be making available as well. So it's not going to be, trust us, we've got the data there that people can then make an informed decision on.
It's a lot of work and these guys put a lot of work into it. And the external help stuff, so credit to them.
Yeah, we've had some people who've done this before, advising us and had deep experience.
Yeah.
Our councillors do it properly. Yeah.
The big part is the consultation and we get as much feedback as possible.
And interesting enough, decision making too, isn't it? Because as Stephen said, he's had some councils who've gone around this point 3 times and not been able to make a decision. Because it's such a big decision.
Yep.
Now, mate,
How do you envision the consultation Ben, what do you envision that?
Thankfully, after the next council workshop, I can hand that over to the engagement team. But
It was discussed at length yesterday with the elected members, and it's quite fulsome as
Yeah, quite a different range of options, a range of methods.
sit downs over coffee to,
Evening meetings and.
No, surprisingly, that time they don't like it.
no.
So come back here.
So,
yeah, look, I think the key thing is giving the people the information that they need. And, you know, this tool we're getting developed is going to be it's going to be crucial in that, because people can then see the impact on their particular space. And then you can sit down one-on-one with somebody or in a small group and say, okay, this is why this is happening. So this is the effect of, if by doing this gives effect to that.
Yeah, and I guess the probably thing, if I'm calling people, and hopefully both of you calling the people in your groups, is it's not about us collecting more money. It's just about how we collect it fairer across the district.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing I see a little bit online. Oh, they're out to grab more money. It's not that. It's literally making it fairer, transparent system, and that's the whole aim of it.
Yeah.
So I think probably your role as a community board member is just to hammer that message home if you're talking to people and you go, no, it's not actually that, it's this.
Yeah, I mean, whether you agree or disagree with any of the options, the fundamental fact is, as Curtis said, it's not about getting more money. It's about the distribution of it. And that's where then you can have your discussions with, okay, how's it going to impact dairy, for argument's sake? Dairy has a high capital value compared to its land value, because they've got sheds and all that carry. How's it going to impact forestry? You know, there's an anomaly there. How's that impact? What's the story with orchardists and how does that work? So those are the types of things that we're really interested in getting feedback on. I think it was mentioned today, this is not a referendum, so it's really going to be considering the feedback. So weighted numbers is not necessarily going to be the answer, but it's more about considered input, I think. That's not to say that, you know, any engagement is
Take the report,
Yeah.
factored into it.
Yeah.
And one thing we see online is, oh, they don't listen to us. Well,
someone's got to make a decision.
yeah, that's what I mean. And I guess, and to your point earlier, the people that benefit and happy, you won't hear from them. So you're only going to hear from my own crowd. So that's the point I'm trying to make is, I won't speak for the whole council, but we won't get in a room and just listen to what the crowd that have given us feedback on, because it'll skew one way.
Yeah. Yeah.
We will listen to it, but that's not going to be what the decision goes on.
Yeah.
Multitude of things.
Yeah.
Well, that's how my mind
Yeah,
works.
I think that from what I've heard from the council, they're interested in, this is our idea, what's your idea and what do you think? Rather than, this is our idea, this is really what we want to do. I mean, and we will have to put a preferred option up, and that's the law, we have to do that. So when we come to the statement of proposal, we'll have to say which one we would prefer to use. But that's only council's thinking at that time, and there will be other things that come out of this process that council may or may not have thought about. I mean, I think we have had a fairly comprehensive.
Done 5 workshops and it's been fairly rigorous.
Yeah.
Back and forward and hearing from you and then us, you guys hearing from us. So not like we've had one workshop and said, let's roll with that. I've been like go into it.
Yeah.
A lot from this team and
all online as well.
yeah, it's all there to watch.
You can have a quiet moment.
They are 2 hours. I'm just warning you, they are lengthy. But
Why might be you impressive?
yeah, that's true. That's true. So that's all I have. That's where we're at. 13th of July, we'll be going to council again at a workshop. I think it's the 13th or it's early July anyway. With this is our draft statement of proposal, etc., etc. anything that you want to change before we put it in front of them at the end of July, and then we're out of consultation.
8th of July.
And that's a 4-hour.
Did you say the 8th?
Because we got, it's all rates, there's nothing else to that one, so. So, yeah, that's all I've got.
No, that's good. Thank you very much for work. That's a lot to us.
I was gonna say, how many?
Alongside
Oh.
BAU.
Yeah, it's been tough. It's been a big project, but we're on target to deliver.
Paul's asked for another rating officer and now he'd